The moment you open your eyes in the morning, before the noise of the world enters your mind, before worries, bills, and pressure rush into your heart, there is a sacred window of time. A moment when heaven is open, when your soul is still pure, and when one simple act can change the spiritual direction of your entire day. The first moments after waking are not ordinary moments. They are spiritually charged, fragile, and incredibly powerful. When you wake up, your soul returns fully into your body after traveling through higher realms during sleep. This is why many people wake up feeling either light or heavy without knowing why. At that moment, your mind has not yet been flooded with fear, comparison, pressure, or lack. You are not yet reacting to the world. You are still aligned with your inner source. What you choose to do in these first minutes quietly programs the entire direction of your day, including your relationship with money, effort, and outcomes. Most people unknowingly destroy this sacred window. They grab their phone, expose themselves to stress, bad news, and comparison. They jump out of bed already thinking about bills, responsibilities, and problems. In doing so, they begin their day in survival mode. Survival mode always leads to scarcity. When the nervous system wakes up in panic, the soul contracts. And when the soul contracts, abundance cannot flow through it. This is why many people work hard all day yet remain stuck in financial pressure. The issue did not begin with effort, it began with alignment. Approaching water immediately after waking interrupts this destructive cycle. Water grounds the soul back into the body gently and correctly. It signals a transition from the spiritual world back into the physical world with intention instead of shock. This is critical because money exists in the physical world but flows according to spiritual laws. If the transition is rushed or chaotic, the channel between heaven and action becomes distorted. Water has a unique spiritual role. It does not resist, it flows. It does not argue, it adapts. When you meet water first thing in the morning, you are training your soul to move like water throughout the day. Instead of forcing outcomes, you align with flow. Instead of chasing money, you allow provision to approach you through the paths meant for you. This subtle shift changes everything. In those first moments, the ego is quiet. Fear has not yet spoken. Doubt has not yet taken control. This is why even a simple act becomes powerful then. When you wash your hands with awareness at that time, you are not just cleaning physically. You are imprinting your consciousness with the message that you are beginning the day purified, capable, and supported. This imprint remains active long after the water dries. Poverty often begins as a mental and spiritual posture, long before it becomes a financial condition. It begins with waking up feeling behind, rushed, unworthy, or afraid. These emotions quietly dictate choices, tone, confidence, and even posture. Over time, they limit what a person believes is possible, what risks they take, and what opportunities they notice. By meeting water before thought, you prevent these patterns from forming for the day. This practice also restores dignity to the morning. Instead of starting the day in reaction, you start in intention. You are not responding to demands. You are establishing alignment. Heaven responds differently to someone who begins the day consciously than to someone who begins the day anxiously. Conscious beginnings invite guided outcomes. There is also a deep psychological effect. When the first action of the day is calm, purposeful, and grounding, the nervous system settles. A settled nervous system makes better decisions, communicates more clearly, and handles pressure without collapsing. These qualities directly affect financial life, even if people don't label them as spiritual. Calm attracts trust, clarity attracts opportunity, stability attracts growth. Water, used at the right moment, becomes a boundary between yesterday and today. It washes away emotional residue from past failures, disappointments, and missed opportunities. Many people carry yesterday's loss into today's effort, and this is why today never fully opens for them. Washing at wake-up creates a clean internal slate. You are no longer operating from yesterday's fear, but from today's potential. This is not superstition, it is alignment. The external world reflects the internal state consistently. When you begin the day aligned, the world responds with less resistance. Tasks feel lighter. Conversations flow more easily. Ideas arrive unexpectedly. These are the real signs that poverty consciousness is loosening its grip. Over time, repeating this practice trains the soul to expect support rather than struggle. Expectation is powerful. When you expect difficulty, you unconsciously create it. When you expect flow, you become receptive to it. The water each morning reinforces this expectation silently, without effort or force. The simplicity of the act is what makes it effective. Complex rituals often fail because they are not sustained. This requires no preparation, no special tools, no performance. Just presence, and presence is what abundance responds to most. In conclusion, the first moments after waking are a spiritual gateway that most people ignore, yet they hold the power to shift an entire life trajectory. By choosing water before worry, intention before information, and alignment before action, you break the invisible cycle that keeps poverty repeating itself. This practice does not promise instant wealth, but it does something far more important. It cleans the channel through which provision flows. When the channel is clean, effort becomes effective, timing improves, and opportunities appear naturally. Poverty fades not because you fight it, but because you no longer align with it, and it all begins with what you do the moment you wake up. Water is not merely a physical substance. It is a carrier of transition, memory, and flow. From the moment creation began, water symbolized movement, from chaos to order, from emptiness to potential. When a person wakes up in the morning, they too are in a state of transition, moving from the unconscious realm back into the physical world. This transition is delicate. If it is rushed, distracted, or filled with anxiety, the day begins fractured. But when water is used intentionally at this precise moment, it becomes a stabilizing bridge between realms, restoring balance before the mind has a chance to scatter. Every night, the soul detaches partially from the body. It releases control, logic, and defense. Upon waking, there is a brief window when the soul is present but not yet burdened. This is why emotions are raw in the morning and thoughts have not fully formed. Water meets the soul in this open state and grounds it gently. Instead of snapping back into the body with stress, the soul settles calmly. This calm settlement determines how the person will relate to effort, pressure, and money throughout the day. Poverty is often misunderstood as a lack of income, but in truth it is frequently the result of friction. Friction between intention and action, friction between effort and reward, friction between desire and belief. When friction dominates, even great effort produces little result. Water reduces friction. Its nature is to smooth, to soften, to allow passage where resistance once existed. When a person aligns with water first thing in the morning, they unconsciously adopt this quality of ease. This ease does not mean laziness, it means efficiency. It means moving in harmony instead of struggle. People trapped in poverty often push constantly, force outcomes, and exhaust themselves. This pushing comes from inner tension established early in the day. When water dissolves that tension at the beginning, actions later become more effective with less strain. The hands are the focus because they represent interaction with the world. Hands build, earn, give, receive, and create. They are the tools through which intention becomes reality. When the hands are washed at wake up with awareness, the message sent inward is subtle but powerful. What I touch today will be clean, guided, and productive. This belief influences how one approaches tasks, negotiations, and decisions. Confidence replaces desperation. Calm replaces urgency. Silence during this act is not ritualistic, it is strategic. Words activate the analytical mind, which often defaults to fear and calculation. Silence allows intention to operate without interference. In silence, the subconscious receives instruction more clearly. When the mind is quiet, the body listens, and when the body listens, behavior shifts automatically throughout the day. Another crucial aspect of this practice is the removal of emotional residue. People do not wake up neutral. They wake up carrying unresolved feelings from the previous day: frustration, disappointment, regret, or fear. These emotions quietly shape perception and reaction. Water washes this residue not symbolically but neurologically. The sensation of water on the skin resets the nervous system, signaling safety and presence. A nervous system that feels safe is more creative, more adaptive, and more capable of recognizing opportunity. Opportunity is often missed not because it does not appear, but because the mind is too tense to see it. Tension narrows perception, calm expands it. Water, induced calm in the morning, widens awareness throughout the day. Suddenly, ideas surface, solutions feel obvious, and connections form naturally. This is how provision often arrives, not as sudden money, but as clarity that leads to money. Gratitude after washing completes the process. Gratitude shifts the internal posture from demand to receptivity. When a person demands, they signal lack. When they appreciate, they signal sufficiency. Sufficiency attracts expansion. This is a fundamental principle. Abundance flows toward those who recognize what already exists, not those who obsess over what is missing. Over time, repetition builds identity. The person no longer sees themselves as someone chasing money, but as someone aligned with provision. Identity shapes behavior more than motivation ever could. When identity shifts, choices change effortlessly. Better choices compound. Compounding is the real secret behind financial change. This practice also teaches patience. Water does not rush, yet it reaches everywhere. By beginning the day with water, a person trains themselves to trust timing instead of forcing results. This trust reduces impulsive decisions that often create financial setbacks. Patience preserves resources. Clarity multiplies them. In conclusion, using water intentionally the moment you wake up is not about superstition or instant miracles. It is about correcting the foundation upon which the entire day is built. Water stabilizes the transition from sleep to action, dissolves inner friction, cleans emotional residue, and sets a tone of calm, confidence, and receptivity. When this tone becomes consistent, the invisible patterns that sustain poverty begin to dissolve. Effort becomes effective. Opportunity becomes visible. Provision becomes natural. Poverty does not disappear through struggle, but through alignment, and alignment begins with water at the very start of the day. Silence in the early moments of the morning is one of the most overlooked forms of power. When a person wakes up, the mind is still unformed, not yet hardened by thought patterns, fears, or external demands. This mental openness is rare and short-lived. The moment words are spoken, the analytical mind takes control, and with it come worry, calculation, and often lack-based thinking. Remaining silent while approaching water preserves this openness and allows intention to imprint itself deeply before the noise of the day begins. Words are not neutral. They activate memory, identity, and expectation. For someone struggling financially, early speech often pulls the mind back into survival mode. Plans, bills, pressure, and fear. Even casual words can awaken old narratives of struggle. Silence interrupts this cycle. It creates a vacuum where new patterns can be introduced without resistance. In this state, the subconscious is receptive, and whatever is introduced, peace, trust, clarity, becomes the default setting for the day. When water is used in silence, the body becomes the medium through which intention is transmitted. The sensation of coolness, flow, and contact grounds awareness into the present moment. Presence is the opposite of poverty consciousness. Poverty consciousness lives in anxiety about the future or regret about the past. Presence anchors the mind in now. where action is effective and opportunity can be recognized. A present mind responds intelligently instead of reactively, and this difference alone can shift financial outcomes over time. Intention transforms the act from routine to alignment. Without intention, washing is habit. With intention, it becomes instruction. The subconscious does not respond to logic. It responds to repetition paired with emotion and awareness. Each morning, when water touches the hands and the intention is set to release lack and receive provision, the subconscious begins to accept this as truth. Over time, this internal truth alters perception, behavior, and expectation. Expectation plays a central role in financial life. People often unknowingly expect difficulty, delay, or disappointment. These expectations influence how they speak, negotiate, and even how they carry themselves. Intention at wake-up rewires expectation before it becomes conscious thought. Instead of anticipating struggle, the mind begins the day anticipating flow. This does not guarantee ease, but it changes how challenges are approached. Challenges become solvable rather than overwhelming. Gratitude integrated into this moment strengthens the effect. Gratitude is not denial of problems, it is recognition of existing support. When gratitude follows intention, it tells the subconscious that support already exists. This creates emotional safety. Emotional safety expands cognitive flexibility, making a person more adaptable and creative. Adaptability is one of the most underrated drivers of financial improvement. Those who adapt quickly find paths others miss. Another critical element is consistency. A single morning may bring calm, but repetition builds structure. Structure stabilizes the inner world, and a stable inner world produces consistent outer results. Many people fluctuate emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, and their finances fluctuate accordingly. This daily practice creates a baseline of alignment that smooths these fluctuations. Over time, this stability becomes noticeable in decision making, relationships, and financial planning. The practice also restores agency. Poverty often carries a sense of powerlessness, the feeling that life happens to you rather than through you. Beginning the day with a conscious act reclaims authorship. It sends a message inward. I am choosing how my day begins. This sense of choice increases confidence. Confidence changes posture, tone, and risk tolerance. These subtle shifts influence outcomes more than people realize. Water also acts as a symbolic boundary. It separates the inner world from the outer world. By washing before engaging with others, a person enters the day internally clean, not carrying emotional residue into interactions. Cleaner interactions lead to better communication, fewer conflicts, and stronger trust. Trust is currency. Where trust exists, opportunities multiply. Over time, this morning alignment begins to influence identity. The person no longer identifies as someone fighting poverty, but as someone cultivating flow. Identity governs behavior automatically. When identity shifts, effort aligns naturally with outcome. Less energy is wasted and results improve. In conclusion, silence, intention, and gratitude combined with water in the first moments of the day create a powerful foundation for change. This practice works not by magic, but by realigning the mind, nervous system, and subconscious toward flow instead of friction. When flow becomes the internal default, external conditions respond accordingly. Poverty loosens its hold not through force, but through consistent alignment. What begins as a quiet, simple act in the morning gradually reshapes the entire trajectory of a life. Gratitude immediately after washing with water is not a polite spiritual gesture. It is a powerful internal switch that determines whether blessing remains open or closes again. When a person wakes up, washes, and then moves straight into worry or complaint, the cleansing effect weakens. The body may be clean, but the channel closes. Gratitude keeps the channel open. It stabilizes what was just activated and tells the inner system that there is already something working in your favor. Gratitude changes the emotional posture of a person before the day has a chance to define it for them. Most people wake up measuring what they lack. They measure time, money, energy, and opportunity. This measuring creates pressure. Pressure creates contraction, and contraction blocks flow. Gratitude reverses this instantly. The moment you acknowledge something good, even something small, you expand internally. Expansion is the natural environment of abundance. This is not philosophy. It is how the nervous system and subconscious work together. When gratitude is felt, the body shifts out of threat mode. Muscles soften, breathing deepens, the mind becomes less defensive. In this state, perception widens. A widened perception sees options that a stressed mind cannot. Many financial breakthroughs do not come from working harder, but from seeing differently. Gratitude trains the mind to see. Gratitude also corrects entitlement, which is one of the most subtle blockages to provision. When a person feels entitled, they unconsciously believe the world owes them. This belief creates disappointment and resentment when things do not arrive quickly. Resentment poisons effort. Gratitude replaces entitlement with appreciation, and appreciation invites partnership rather than resistance. Life responds better to someone who appreciates than to someone who demands. Saying or feeling gratitude after washing water in the morning anchors humility into strength. Humility does not mean weakness. It means alignment with reality. Reality is that no one creates provision alone. There are forces, timing, people, and circumstances beyond personal control. Gratitude acknowledges this interconnectedness. When you acknowledge support, support increases. Another critical aspect of gratitude is that it shifts identity. Poverty often comes with a hidden identity of I am behind or I am lacking. Gratitude challenges this identity without argument. Instead of fighting the belief directly, gratitude introduces a new experience. Something is already right. Repeated daily, this experience weakens the old identity until it no longer dominates behavior. Behavior always follows identity. When someone feels internally resourced, they make better decisions. They are less reactive, less impulsive, and more discerning. They do not jump into desperate opportunities or make fear-based commitments. They wait, evaluate, and choose wisely. Wisdom preserves resources. Preservation leads to growth. Gratitude also improves relationships, and relationships are one of the most direct pathways to financial change. Opportunities often come through people, not ideas. A grateful person listens better, communicates more clearly, and creates emotional safety. Emotional safety builds trust. Trust opens doors. Many doors that appear lucky are actually the result of trust cultivated quietly over time. Morning gratitude has a compounding effect because it sets a reference point. Throughout the day, when challenges arise, the mind unconsciously compares them to the calm state established in the morning. This reduces emotional volatility. Instead of collapsing under pressure, the person returns internally to that grounded state. Emotional regulation is one of the strongest predictors of long-term success, yet it is rarely discussed in spiritual or financial teachings. Gratitude also neutralizes comparison. Comparison fuels poverty consciousness because it constantly measures self against others. When gratitude is active, comparison loses its grip. The person becomes focused on their own path, timing, and growth. Focused energy moves faster than scattered energy. Speed with direction produces results. Importantly, gratitude does not deny hardship. It does not pretend everything is perfect. It simply refuses to let hardship become the only story. This balance keeps a person realistic without becoming cynical. Cynicism is another hidden blocker of abundance. It closes the heart and narrows perception. Gratitude keeps the heart open while the mind stays clear. Over time, gratitude becomes automatic. The person begins to notice small wins, subtle progress, and quiet support. These observations reinforce hope. Hope fuels persistence. Persistence outlasts obstacles. Many people fail not because they lack ability, but because they lose hope too early. Gratitude protects hope. This practice also aligns effort with timing. When a person is grateful, they are less likely to force outcomes prematurely. They trust that progress is unfolding even when results are not immediate. This patience prevents burnout and preserves energy for the right moments. Energy spent at the right time multiplies. Energy spent in panic drains. In conclusion, gratitude after washing with water in the morning is the act that seals alignment and allows blessing to remain active throughout the day. It expands the nervous system, rewires identity, sharpens perception, and stabilizes emotion. Over time, this daily gratitude dissolves poverty consciousness at its root, replacing it with calm expectancy and inner sufficiency. When sufficiency becomes the internal state, external provision begins to respond naturally. Poverty fades not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because the inner conditions that sustained it no longer exist. Consistency is the difference between a meaningful practice and a forgotten idea. Many people encounter powerful concepts, feel inspired for a day or two, and then return to old patterns. Poverty often persists not because people lack knowledge, but because their alignment is inconsistent. When an action is repeated daily, especially at the same time and in the same way, it stops being an effort and becomes an internal structure. Structure is what holds change in place. Performing this water practice every morning builds a rhythm that the mind and body begin to rely on. The nervous system loves predictability. When it knows that the day begins calmly and intentionally, it relaxes. A relaxed nervous system does not sabotage progress. It does not create unnecessary urgency, impulsive decisions, or emotional reactions that undo hard work. Over time, this calm becomes the baseline state rather than a temporary feeling. Daily repetition also trains trust. Trust is not blind belief, it is familiarity. When you repeatedly begin the day in alignment and notice that things tend to flow more smoothly, even in small ways, trust grows naturally. This trust changes how you approach challenges. Instead of panicking at the first obstacle, you remain steady. Steadiness allows you to think, adjust, and persist. Many financial setbacks come not from the obstacle itself, but from the panic response to it. Consistency also works at the level of identity formation. What you do occasionally does not define you. What you do daily does. When a person washes with water every morning with intention, they begin to see themselves as someone who prepares their inner world before facing the outer one. This self-image influences behavior automatically. They are more likely to plan, to pause before reacting, and to act with clarity. These behaviors compound into better outcomes over time. One of the most damaging aspects of poverty consciousness is the belief that change must be dramatic to be real. This belief causes people to dismiss small practices as insignificant, but reality operates through accumulation. Small actions repeated consistently create massive shifts. Water dripping steadily can shape stone. In the same way, this daily practice gradually reshapes inner patterns that once felt permanent. Consistency also neutralizes self-doubt. When a person keeps a daily commitment to themselves, even a small one, self-respect grows. Self-respect influences how one allows others to treat them, what opportunities they accept, and what standards they maintain. Low self-respect often leads people to accept less than they deserve, financially and otherwise. Consistent self-alignment raises the internal standard. There is also a powerful time-based effect. Morning practices shape the day more than practices done later. By placing this act at the very start of the day, it becomes non-negotiable. It is not something you do if you have time, it is something you do before time begins. This priority placement teaches the subconscious that inner alignment comes first. When inner alignment is prioritized, outer effort becomes more effective. Over weeks and months, this practice creates a noticeable shift in momentum. Momentum is not just speed, it is direction sustained over time. Many people work hard but in scattered directions, canceling out their own progress. A consistent morning alignment creates directional clarity. Decisions begin to align with long-term benefit rather than short-term relief. This shift alone can radically improve financial stability. Consistency also creates resilience. Life will still present challenges. Not every day will feel abundant. But when alignment is practiced daily, setbacks do not feel final. The person returns to their grounding each morning, resets and continues. This ability to reset prevents discouragement from turning into abandonment of effort. Persistence, more than talent or luck, determines long-term outcomes. Importantly, consistency removes the need for constant motivation. Motivation fluctuates. Discipline rooted in routine does not. When the practice is habitual, it happens even on tired or difficult days. These are often the days when alignment matters most. By maintaining the practice regardless of mood, the person stops allowing emotions to dictate direction. Over time, this daily act also influences how the person views money itself. Money stops being an enemy or a savior and becomes a neutral tool. Emotional neutrality toward money leads to healthier financial decisions. People who are emotionally charged around money often make extreme choices. Consistent alignment cools these extremes. The compounding effect of this practice is subtle but powerful. Improved emotional regulation leads to better communication. Better communication leads to stronger relationships. Stronger relationships lead to opportunities. Opportunities, when met with clarity and patience, lead to growth. Each link in this chain is supported by the same daily act of alignment. In conclusion, consistency in this morning water practice is what transforms it from a symbolic gesture into a life-shaping force. By repeating it daily, you build internal structure, trust, identity, and momentum. These qualities gradually dissolve the patterns that sustain poverty consciousness. Wealth does not arrive as a sudden event, but as a natural outcome of sustained alignment. When alignment becomes consistent, provision finds its way to you without force, struggle, or desperation. Patience and trust in timing are among the most difficult qualities to develop, especially for those who have experienced prolonged struggle or financial pressure. When someone has lived with lack, urgency becomes a survival instinct. Everything feels like it must happen immediately, and every delay feels threatening. This constant urgency drains energy, clouds judgment, and leads to choices made out of fear rather than wisdom. Beginning the day with water teaches patience without lectures, through experience rather than effort. Water never rushes, yet it is never late. It moves according to gravity, terrain, and time, always finding its way. When you interact with water intentionally at the start of the day, you subconsciously absorb this lesson. You begin to understand that force is not the same as effectiveness. This understanding softens the inner pressure that drives poor financial decisions. Instead of reacting impulsively, you pause. That pause is where wisdom lies. Trust in timing does not mean passivity. It means aligning action with readiness. Many people attempt opportunities before they are prepared, emotionally or practically, because they fear missing out. This fear often results in loss rather than gain. When patience is cultivated daily, a person becomes more discerning. They sense when to move and when to wait. This discernment protects resources and preserves energy. The morning water practice supports this by grounding the nervous system. A regulated nervous system is capable of delayed gratification. It can tolerate uncertainty without panic. This tolerance is essential for financial growth, which often requires sustained effort without immediate reward. People who lack patience abandon strategies too early, jump between ideas, or overspend in moments of stress. Patience stabilizes direction. Trust also heals the relationship with effort. Many people associate effort with exhaustion because they have pushed without seeing results. This creates resentment toward work itself. When trust in timing is restored, effort becomes lighter. You work because it is the right step, not because you are trying to force an outcome. This shift improves performance and reduces burnout. Another aspect of patience is the ability to stay present during growth. Growth often looks messy before it looks successful. There are learning curves, adjustments, and setbacks. Without patience, these phases feel like failure. With patience, they are recognized as part of the process. Water teaches this naturally. It accepts obstacles and reshapes itself around them. This adaptability is more powerful than resistance. The daily act of beginning with water also teaches surrender without loss of agency. Surrender here does not mean giving up. It means releasing the illusion of total control. When a person accepts that not everything is within their control, they stop wasting energy fighting reality. That energy becomes available for creative problem solving and strategic thinking. Creativity thrives in relaxed states, not in panic. Over time, patience reshapes ambition. Ambition becomes steady instead of frantic. Goals remain, but they are pursued with clarity and balance. This steadiness attracts collaboration. People are drawn to those who are grounded and trustworthy. Collaboration multiplies capacity. Many significant financial shifts happen through partnerships, not solo effort. Trust in timing also reduces comparison. Comparison accelerates impatience by making someone feel late or behind. When trust is active, another person's success no longer threatens your own. You recognize that different paths unfold at different speeds. This emotional freedom prevents envy, which is another hidden drain on energy and focus. This practice also improves decision recovery. When mistakes happen, and they will, patience allows for correction without self-punishment. Self-punishment leads to shame, and shame blocks growth. Patience creates self-compassion. Self-compassion supports learning. Learning improves outcomes. This cycle is essential for long-term financial resilience. Patience further aligns expectation with reality. Unrealistic expectations create disappointment. Disappointment breeds cynicism. Cynicism shuts down effort. When expectations are realistic and patient, progress is noticed and appreciated. Appreciation reinforces persistence. Persistence eventually outlasts obstacles. Importantly, patience restores hope. Hope is not naive optimism. It is the belief that effort is meaningful even when results are delayed. Hope keeps people moving forward during quiet seasons. Quiet seasons are often preparation periods. Those who quit during these times miss the breakthroughs that follow. The water practice each morning gently reinforces this hope. It reminds the subconscious that alignment is happening, even if evidence is not immediate. This reminder prevents despair. Despair is the true enemy of progress, not lack. In conclusion, cultivating patience and trust in timing through the simple act of engaging with water each morning transforms the inner environment where financial outcomes are formed. It calms urgency, sharpens discernment, and restores faith in process. Over time, this patience dissolves the fear-driven behaviors that sustain poverty. What replaces them is steady effort, clear judgment, and resilience. When timing is trusted and action is aligned, provision arrives naturally, without force or desperation. Identity is the deepest layer through which all financial outcomes are filtered. Long before money appears or disappears, identity decides what a person believes is possible, permissible, and sustainable. Many people unknowingly carry an identity shaped by struggle, the identity of someone who must fight, chase, and sacrifice endlessly just to survive. This identity does not disappear when circumstances change. It follows the person into new opportunities and quietly limits what they allow themselves to receive. The morning water practice works at this deepest level by reshaping identity through repetition rather than force. Each morning, when a person begins the day intentionally, they are reinforcing a self-image of someone who prepares their inner world before engaging the outer one. This may seem subtle, but identity is built through repeated self-experiences. Over time, the person no longer sees themselves as reactive or behind, but as grounded and aligned. This shift changes how they speak, how they make decisions, and how they respond to opportunity. People treat you according to the identity you project, and you project the identity you practice daily. One of the most damaging identities associated with poverty is the belief that struggle is noble or necessary. While effort is valuable, constant struggle creates exhaustion and resentment. When someone begins the day calmly with water, they interrupt this narrative. They are teaching themselves that ease is not laziness, and flow is not weakness. This redefinition allows them to accept support without guilt and success without self-sabotage. Self-sabotage is often the final barrier between effort and reward. It appears as procrastination, underpricing, fear of visibility, or abandoning progress just before momentum builds. These behaviors are not random. They protect an old identity that feels familiar, even if it is painful. By reinforcing a new identity daily, the water practice weakens the emotional attachment to the old one. Change becomes safer. This practice also reshapes the relationship with receiving. Many people are comfortable giving effort but uncomfortable receiving reward. They unconsciously block income, help, or recognition because it conflicts with how they see themselves. Starting the day in alignment trains the nervous system to tolerate receiving without tension. Tolerance expands into comfort, and comfort expands into capacity. You cannot hold what you are not comfortable receiving. Identity also influences boundaries. People with scarcity identities often overextend themselves, say yes when they should say no, and accept unfair exchanges. A grounded identity, reinforced each morning, strengthens boundaries naturally. Strong boundaries protect time, energy, and value. Protection leads to sustainability. Sustainability leads to growth. Another shift occurs in the relationship with failure. Failure does not define identity, it informs it. When identity is rooted in alignment rather than outcome, setbacks become feedback instead of verdicts. This perspective keeps momentum intact. Momentum is more valuable than short-term success because it carries you through inevitable fluctuations. The water practice also builds internal authority. Authority is not dominance, it is self-trust. When you trust yourself, you do not outsource decisions to fear or comparison. You act from clarity. Clear action compounds. Over time, this internal authority translates into external leadership, whether in business, work, or community. Leadership attracts resources. Identity shifts also influence patience. When someone no longer sees themselves as behind, they stop rushing to catch up. They allow growth to unfold properly. Proper unfolding is stable. Stability attracts investment, collaboration, and long-term opportunity. Importantly, this identity transformation does not require affirmations or mental effort. It happens through embodied practice. The body learns before the mind agrees. When the body experiences calm, clarity, and grounding each morning, the mind eventually aligns with that experience. This is why the practice works even when belief is weak. Over time, the person notices subtle changes. They speak with more confidence, tolerate uncertainty better, and choose differently under pressure. These choices shape outcomes. Outcomes reinforce identity. The cycle becomes self-sustaining. This new identity is not about wealth as status, but about sufficiency as stability. Stability is the foundation of abundance. From stability, creativity emerges. From creativity, value is created. From value, income flows. In conclusion, the seventh and deepest effect of this morning water practice is the transformation of identity. By beginning each day in alignment, you gradually replace a scarcity-based self-image with one rooted in grounding, clarity, and trust. This shift dissolves self-sabotage, strengthens boundaries, and expands the capacity to receive. Poverty loses its grip not because circumstances magically change, but because the person who once sustained it no longer exists. When identity changes, reality follows.